Hey everyone, welcome to the Hot Seat on this Media Monday. I'm Ron Klopfenstein, and we have a great show for you this week. We begin with an exclusive interview connected to the death of Messiah Nantwi at Mid-State Correctional Facility. I'll be speaking with Shaun Parese. He served as a juror in the trial of former correction officer Jonah Levy. Then we're going to talk to Sandy Silverstein. She's the host and producer of Real People, Real Lives podcast. I was honored to be the guest on the premiere episode of her show. We're going to talk about storytelling, real life experiences, and why people need a place to speak honestly. In our third segment, we're going to head back to my hometown, to Westmoreland, for a feature story on the Hometown Heroes banner project. Photojournalist and AI content producer Jim Hale and I were there as the community worked to honor our local veteran and preserve their stories. Then I'll ask Mike Aramo about the art of doing CS. He's offering live online JavaScript game development camps where students can learn real programming by building browser-based games. But we begin tonight with Shaun Parese. Shaun served as a juror in the trial of former correction officer Jonah Levy. He was charged in connection with the death of Messiah Nantwi at Mid-York Correctional Facility. A jury found him guilty of manslaughter, assault, and other charges. Shaun is my brother-in-law, and I saw the impact that serving on the jury had on him. We recorded an interview last week right here in the 95.5 FM studio. I asked him about the psychological toll his jury duty service had on him and his fellow jurors. Here's my conversation with Shaun Parese.
Now, Ron, it was probably the most difficult things I've done in a long time. They did roughly give you some idea what you were getting into before they started the trial, gave you some amount of disclosure just to let you know this is going to be very abrasive and very rough subject matter, but it doesn't really prepare you for what this is going into it. There's a significant amount of compartmentalization you have to do. Again, you're sworn in as a juror. You have to take that seriously, and you're making sure not to disclose any information. You're not to talk to anybody about anything you're seeing, even the fellow jurors. You need to basically just absorb what they're giving you, what you're seeing in the courtroom, go home and just park it for the day, then resume the next. So I was ready to do that, but the topic matter itself, I wasn't aware that this would actually be a murder trial until you kind of get into it and start seeing the logistics of what you're kind of confronting. Emotionally, mentally, I probably was like, yeah, sure, it's the right thing to do, but you're not really prepared for something like that until you start kind of diving in and understanding it.
Shaun says jurors were warned that the case could involve difficult material, but as the trial began, he realized that being warned and actually sitting through the evidence were two very different things.
It was a bit of a maze to navigate, and you're basically watching body camera captures, some of which were very revealing, some of which were, you only had audio cues because there were definitely segments of the incident where these correctional officers were basically facing away, seemingly very implicitly from the activities going on in the cell. So you had to kind of infer based on that context. On top of that, you've got autopsy pictures. That's probably the one thing that stuck with me the most in that case is...
What did you see?
Well, the deceased, the incarcerated individual, Messiah, basically it's a lot of autopsy footage that showed the wounds they suffered, the degree of the assault that had happened to him.
Can you describe it?
Difficult to actually look at, especially when you're in the jury room and you actually are presented then at the end of the case with the evidence. You're seeing basically Messiah there with a deceased at that point in time with a boot print, pictures of different parts of his body, showing the wounds, showing a lot of what he endured going through that. A lot of that sticks with you. There's one thing, actually two things I'll say that probably stuck with me the most. We're just seeing basically just the boot print in his head in the autopsy photos. And going back to the body camera footage, this was kind of drawn out and narrated differently by both prosecution and defense, but there are elements there where you hear a loud bang in the background, which we kind of correlated to Messiah having his head kicked into a cabinet by one of the correctional officers. So it's the exposure to seeing like the visual cues, the audio cues repeatedly.
Yeah.
There are things there that I have seen and I heard that stuck with me for days and weeks after the fact.
The evidence was disturbing enough on its own, but Shaun says one of the hardest parts was that jurors could not talk about what they were seeing and hearing, not with friends, not with family, not even with each other, until deliberations began.
You can't discuss anything until the case is completed at that point, but at least you have, it feels like a support group. And this felt even more challenging because I actually knew one of the individuals also selected for that same jury.
Yeah.
And any discussion we had
And you weren't allowed to discuss it.
No,
even
we
with
would
him,
talk
so.
about anything and everything but the case, just to kind of get our minds off of it.
What was it like for you during those 6 days when you had to watch this stuff and hear this stuff all day long, a human being being beaten to death, and you had to sift through that evidence all day long and then not discuss it with a living soul all night long? What was that like for you to keep all that inside?
That was...
Because it was such extreme violence too. It's not just like you're watching a violent show. This is a real thing, and you're really forced to give it the gravity that it deserves. And doing so, it must take a toll.
Absolutely. And it's not just what you're seeing and what you're hearing, it's also the weight of consequence. Families are impacted by decisions we're making in this case. We had, I firmly believe, actually probably a relative of the deceased who was sitting in the stands, at least we thought was a relative of the deceased.
Yeah.
We had absolutely the defendant's wife and children present also. So you have all those external factors which you're aware of, but then you have to completely shut out because you really can't take the weight of anything going on outside of the evidence being presented right there and then in the court.
Shaun expected the end of the trial to bring relief. Instead, he says, once the trial was over, the symptoms became even harder to ignore.
I lost sleep over it. I know at least one or two of my fellow jurors lost sleep over this. It was not uncommon to wake up in the middle of the night and just have like strong visuals, or you hear something like a car door slam and associate that to things you heard during the evidence presentations. This, honestly, it's something that left me in a very compromised mental, emotional state. I think I was fine up until the trial ended, and then it just was something that kind of persisted for days and maybe a week or two afterwards.
How did it persist? When did you first start to realize that it was lingering? The thoughts.
Pretty much immediately after. You got to think that everything is over, so it just gets shut off. But your emotions are never something that's that easy to control.
Right.
As much as you think you have complete control over it, your subconscious mind is going to do what it's going to do. And it was really the few days following the trial where it felt like my filter was broken because I had to compartmentalize so much for so long that I did not have, or had very limited capacity to kind of withhold my thoughts or feelings from anybody else around me, friends, coworkers. I felt very compromised. I actually took a little bit of time off from work just to kind of get my head about me. Like 50% of people who go through jury in a murder trial suffer either from PTSD or anxiety or a combination of both. As I'm talking to the professional through the employee assistance program, trying to get some advice, at least when I'm talking about like the symptoms I'm experiencing in terms of like lack of sleep, responding to audio-visual cues, seeing flashes.
What sort of audio-visual cues do you have a response to now?
At this point, I think a lot of that is stabilized, but I will say for like the first week or two after the trial, it was always whenever I heard a loud slam, like metal on metal, a car door closing quickly, I would associate it very much directly to a lot of what I heard in the courtroom, which was the association of Messiah's head being kicked against a metal cabinet.
Right.
It brings that right back to you. Middle of the night, I would be woken up and I would kind of have flashes of imagery, again, of seeing like the autopsy pictures.
Yeah.
And the professional I was working with in terms of mental health did verify that sounds
that
like
you're
you
working
had,
with now, but you weren't working with then.
Correct,
Right,
correct.
yeah.
But she did kind of clarify the fact that those symptoms are indicative of PTSD.
Right. Shaun reached out for help through his employer because, he says, that help did not come from the court system. After the trial, did the courts or the judge or anyone try to prepare you for that there would be lingering psychological effects, or maybe to offer assistance?
Post-trial, no. There was no disclosure about that. There was no offer of help, which is something we kind of joked about between myself and my friend after the fact. Like,
Yeah.
this is something that should be kind of baked into the system in terms of providing mental health support, therapy, something. To be honest, because I was working while doing the trial, I received no compensation for even being on the jury for this case.
Wow.
That was the one thing. Thankfully, my employer had this as a free benefit.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah.
one thing that I think that should absolutely, for myself, for anyone who's going through a murder trial, this should
Yeah.
be something provided by the state or something provided by the court, just to look out for the people who are doing their civic duty.
Right. Shaun says he was lucky that his employer offered counseling through an employee assistance program, but he believes jurors should not have to rely on luck.
Thing that I think should be automatically offered, even if the individual, the juror, doesn't feel they need it. Hey,
Yeah.
here's a number, here's outreach. Should you experience any symptoms, here, that's something that we're going to cover for your civic duty. That felt like a bit of an oversight, and that's something that I would definitely recommend for anyone going through this. Is, like I said, depending on the person, I feel like the kinder heart you have, the worse this is going to be for you going through it.
Yeah.
And even the people who felt like they were probably a little bit more emotionally braced,
Yeah.
they're still going to suffer some kind of consequence from going through this. More than just a story. Like, this is something that is going to stick with you for the remainder of your life. I absolutely encourage people to do their civic duty.
Yeah.
But at the same time, should you be involved in something like this, plan accordingly, make sure you have that support group for you. They may not understand why you need it, but at the same time, you're going to need that.
Yeah. Well, Shaun, thank you for doing your duty as a juror. And also thank you for, having the courage to come on here and to talk about it. This is a aspect of these cases that we don't hear much about. And I think it's really important that someone speaks up for the jurors and to give some support to the people who really you sacrifice so much to be on a jury. And I don't think people realize, like, psychologically what an intense, potentially harmful, difficult experience that must be. So I'm really glad that you came on here today to talk about this.
No, Ron, it's strictly my pleasure. Thank you for giving me the time and the platform. I'd appreciate that.
If you're experiencing mental health concerns, you can find help through the United Way's 211 program. For information on resources in our area, you can dial 211 or 1-844-342-5211 or go to 211midyork.org. We'll have that interview tonight at 9 p.m. on my YouTube channel, Facebook, and Instagram and TikTok accounts. Joining me now in the studio is Sandy Silverstein. Sandy is the host and producer of Real People, Real Lives podcast, where I was a guest on the premiere episode of the show. Welcome, Sandy.
Thank you, Ron. This is an honor to be on here with you.
Well, it was an honor to be interviewed by you too. So,
well, it's funny. We've known each other for years, and this is really the first chance we've been a guest on each other's projects.
I think
this is so cool. Thank you.
It's really exciting. So what is Real People, Real Lives all about?
Well, it's a project that I really wanted to start. It goes all the way back to 2019 into early 2020 when I was doing mornings on the radio. On Bug Country,
yeah.
radio, and I was Brittany Lee, and I really wanted to kind of dip my toes into podcasting, give it a shot. I was doing mornings, I was doing all that, but I want to try something a little different. And so I started a podcast called Real People, Real Stories.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and I got in 4 episodes before the big C hit, COVID.
Oh, okay.
And everything just kind of collapsed.
Yeah,
We were all afraid to even, I think at that point, get on Zoom because we could catch COVID through Zoom at that point. Nobody knew. And so it just kind of fell to the wayside. Fast forward about a year, I started a podcast with my friend Todd, who lives in Wisconsin, and that became pretty popular.
Yeah.
On all the platforms, became pretty popular. But then over the winter this year, it was so brutal and so cold. I said, I just want to start my own new project. Let's do this. Let's kick this back up again. But I wanted to change it just a little bit. And so that's where Real People, Real Lives podcast was born. And the whole premise is, well, back to when I was on the radio, community was so important to me.
Yeah.
I really have so much faith in our community. We have some of the best people that I know in this community.
Yeah.
And it's a really strong community when we all come together.
Right.
And that's what I really wanted to focus on in this podcast. Bringing people from our community together through shared stories, shared experiences, and kind of realizing that maybe we're not as different as we think we are.
Right. You get so much more of a connection with people through media when they're allowed to tell their story in depth and introduce themselves in depth. What are some of the things that you're finding out about people?
Well, it's funny. I plan on having guests from with all different kinds of challenges in their lives.
Yeah.
You were such an amazing guest for me.
I had quite a few.
But you're not alone, and that's the whole point is you're not alone. We may all share challenges in life, maybe they're not exactly the same.
Yeah.
But we all have this kind of running theme where we deal with these challenges and we come out the other side.
Right.
You know, we're stronger people because we've dealt with it and we've won.
Yeah.
And it hasn't gotten us. And I think that we see people we know every day. We wave to them. We talk to them every day. And we really don't know the challenges that they have.
What's really going on for them.
Right.
Yes.
And I have, my next episode will be Jack Flans, who is well known in the community.
Yeah. Jack is great.
Came from a life of food scarcity.
Yeah, right.
And he also suffered with ADD before really people knew what ADD was.
Right.
And so Jack and I walked through his life and the challenges that he had. Denise Mead is a businesswoman. She's retired now, but she was a manager for a local business. And she lost, I think it was 4 family members in a very short span of time.
Wow.
A few tragically.
Yeah.
And she just suffered the most intense grief.
Wow, we're going to talk more about that when we come back. We're talking today with Sandy Silverstein. She's a host and producer of Real People, Real Lives podcast. When we come back, she's staying with us. We're going to continue our conversation. Later in the show, we'll meet Mike Aramo from the Art of Doing CS. He'll tell us about his online JavaScript game development camps, and I'll take you home to Westmoreland, where they're hanging Hometown Heroes banners all along Main Street. I'm Ron Klofferstein. You're in the hot seat on a Media Monday. I'll have more after the break. Welcome back to the hot seat on this Media Monday. I'm Ron Klofferstein. We're continuing our conversation now with Sandy Silverstein. She's host and producer of the Real People, Real Lives podcast. I was her guest on the premiere episode. You can find that on Facebook, and Sandy is right here with us now in the studio. So, interview people for the podcast, for real people, real stories, getting into their stories. It's a lot different than on the radio, where it's a lot faster.
Yes.
So what were some of the adaptations you had to make, to think in such longer form?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Radio, like you said, is very fast-paced, and you're like boom, 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 boom. And for this podcast, Ron, I really wanted it to be, you tell me your story.
Oh, I like that.
You know, you talk. I'll kind of guide you.
I was going to say.
That's exactly my thought, because I will guarantee you that most of my guests have never really said a lot of the things that they've said out loud, or very rarely have said that.
Yeah.
And I think there's a little bit of a therapeutic positive side to that when you actually get to talk to somebody and tell your story in your own words, in your own time. Right.
And I think people really want people to know their stories. You know, I was really pleased that some of the students I have talked about your podcast, you know. And it's like, I think it's good to know that, like, for them to know that in order to do this kind of work that I'm doing here and be successful at this, it's really very hard for me. I have to overcome the daily challenge of being a stutterer, you know?
Yes.
And I talk about that with them too. It's like, you know, to think that, like, the people that, sometimes when you think people have it easy, they really don't.
No. I think there are very, very few people in the world who have it easy.
Exactly. And, like, the struggle is such a good thing to talk about and stuff.
I really don't think there's anything horrible about a bit of struggle in your life, because I think it makes you stronger. I think it gives you a different perspective, Ron. And I think it really helps you understand other people once you realize that they're going through struggles too. It's not as good as it might seem in day-to-day life.
everything is so much harder than it really seems. I think it's good for people to keep note of that too.
It truly is, and I think it's really good for people to be able to tell their story in a way that's non-threatening. Right. They can say what they need to say. They can tell their story, and I think they're especially happy to be able to say, "And I made it through that."
Yeah,
and look where I am today.
Your podcast was the first time that I really have talked in great depth about having chronic fatigue syndrome and what that did to my life and losing everything to that. And I think that was also the first time I really talked about what it was like to have to after like 10 years come off all those prescription drugs, including opioids, you know?
Right.
And I think that was I was really glad to have the platform to do that and to like tell people like this is what it's really like and this is how hard it's been.
It's not what you see in the movies. It's not what you see in a 40-minute TV drama every Wednesday night.
Right.
It's a lot more difficult than
day
that.
after day, minute after minute, the grinding away, you know?
That's right.
Especially recovery from illness, you know?
And even Ron, as I was listening to your story or listening to Jack's story, Denise's story, all of the stories that I've recorded so far, I found myself with each one saying, that was me.
Oh, right.
When you were saying how you were the quote-unquote fat kid, I thought I was the quote-unquote fat kid. Yeah. When Jack was talking about food insecurity and not having enough food and orange government cheese as a kid, I said I had orange government cheese as a kid. I had food insecurity as a kid. And I think that that's so relatable to so many people, but it's something we don't talk about. Because we don't want to talk about it.
All these things are so relatable. And it's so good that you asked us to talk about that, you know? Because so many people do want to. People want to hear it, too.
Yes.
People need to know it, that people around them, you know? Who inspires you?
Oh, my gosh. My husband, Dave.
I was going to say,
he really inspires me. He, years and years ago...
Super successful radio guy.
Oh, my gosh. Dave Silvers. He's been around for years. He's a legend in the area. And everybody knows Dave.
Yep.
And, but he really is my inspiration. He's doing something he really loves to do, and he's been doing it for many, many years. And he doesn't let things get him down. Mm-hmm. You know, we...
What's his secret?
I don't know, but I wish I knew, because I'm the one who's anxiety-ridden half the time, and he's the one who's calm, cool, and collected, right? You know, he gives me the look. So I'd love to know that. We'll bottle it. We'll get it out there. But he's very inspirational to me.
Yeah. Doing what you love is inspiring. So I'm sure that keeps him on a very even keel, too. You know?
Yes. And the fact that I'm at home now, I work at home, and so we have a lot more time. I used to be in international banking management, which was a very corporate job.
Yeah.
And so it was very 9 to 5, rigid. And so now we have more, as we get older, now we have more time and more adventures than we had before. So it's really nice. It's a nice time in our lives now.
Was it a big difference to go from like the corporate banking, international banking to radio, or is a company a company?
No, it was a big difference.
How so?
Well, it's funny. Being in a large corporation, part of a large corporate corporation, everything is by the book. Everything is rigid. Yeah. And then I got bilateral carpal tunnel surgery. So I was out of work for about 2 months. Wow. And in those 2 months is when I kind of said, well, this is my chance. I'm going to do it. Because David said to me, you know, I talked to some of the people at the station, and David said to me, well, go talk to them. Thank you. He said, go talk to them. And so that's when I made my move. And so it really was like night and day.
Wow.
And next thing I know, I'm doing middays on Bug Country, and then a few months later, I was told I was going to be mornings on Bug Country. So,
what was it like for you? One of the things that interests me about people I interview is like I have never I'm so used to having a job and having jobs, the teaching job too, like where it's always like you're always on stage, or like everything that you do is either like seen like publicly available, or it feels like it is because you're in front of like 25 kids or a room full of kids. And it's like I don't know. What is it like to do a job where it's not like that? Like with corporate banking, you're just like, your audience is like your boss or your team, but like you don't, then you go from that to radio, where like from your first moment on the job, everyone can hear it, you know?
Everybody knows who you are pretty quickly.
Right.
And I kind of was a little bit known because everybody knew me because they knew Dave.
Right.
But then, and it was funny because there were some people who didn't realize that Sandy was Brittany Lee.
That was you.
And they couldn't wait to meet Brittany Lee, but they already knew Sandy. It was very funny. But it was like night and day. And all of a sudden you're out there. And I am an introvert. And I'm
you were
an
telling
empath.
me, right? Yeah.
so it was a really weird balance trying to be out there. I think what really drove me was being able to be in the community and being able to bring people together, because we were out there on the weekends and we were doing all kinds of stuff.
A lot of promotional stuff.
A lot of promotional stuff. And we were introducing bands at venues, and we were doing all kinds of stuff. And so it was a lot of hard work, but it was a lot of fun too.
Oh yeah.
It was
super hard work.
totally different than just talking to, Macquarie Bank in Australia.
Yeah, right.
Now you're talking to a few hundred people at some point. You're at the casino at the Tin Rooster introducing bands. It's a big difference.
And you may be talking to one person on the air, but 1,000 people or thousands are listening to you all.
And just like you on the radio, that's one thing you kind of have to keep in mind.
Right.
You really are talking to all of your friends out there in radio land. You're not just talking to yourself. Although it looks like you are, you're not.
It's such a strange thing, because like it feels like you're talking to one person, but then on the other hand, I get so used to I'm so used to every conversation being seen by thousands that I kind of don't know what it's like to not have a job like that. You know what I mean?
I know.
So it's like,
it's very different. I think that's actually a great point. I think that's one of the things that makes me love podcasting so much.
Yeah.
Because now that I'm working at home and I'm not on the air all the time anymore, I'm still out in the community, but not in the same way that I was. And this gives me a voice.
Yeah.
This gives me a chance to put my stamp saying, Sandy was here.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, to be able to keep your voice heard.
Oh, I do too.
When you think that you have something important to say.
Speaking of voice, one of the things we talked about when I was on your podcast is, for me, when I began the show, it was extremely difficult with my stuttering.
Yes.
Because I was approaching the show the show the way that I thought a radio show should be, where I was like I was going way too fast. I was pushing myself to go too fast. I was bringing more like heightened excitement to the voice, which I can't do with a stutter. But then I was telling you, I realized at some point I need to be thinking not as radio, but as podcast.
Yes.
And podcasters talk nice and slow. And then I, after a while, began to adapt that slower, much slower, lower speaking voice to everything that I do. And actually help my speaking overall too. Now, for you, is there a big difference between the way that you speak on the radio, when you were on the radio, and how you're speaking on the podcast?
Oh yeah, when I was on the air. Now, Dave speaks rather slow. Dave is a very measured approach. Because it was a morning show, I took a little bit more of a faster, more upbeat kind of approach.
Which is kind of what radio shows are usually like.
It's sort of that old-fashioned thought process, back in the day.
That's why I thought I had to be with the show. I was like, these are the hottest hits, And I could not do it. I could get one line out, then I would stutter. It'd be like I would hit a skid, and it would be awful, time and time again. And I thought, what am I going to do? But then I realized, just think podcast.
Right. And I think that's a really good point, Ron, is that you have to do what's best for you.
Yeah.
And I think that we all do our best work when we're doing what's best for us.
Oh, right.
When we're not trying to be a different way or what we think in our head we're supposed to be. Because I was the same way. When I first started in radio, I was the same way.
Yeah.
I started in 2017 I was telling you before we started today, I was talking to the cows on the farms in Bug Country at 6 a.m. And, but I had to learn what my voice was. My personal voice. And it's important.
It is important. It's been really nice for me, actually, because it has really changed the way that I speak all the time.
Yes.
And it's made me adapt a speaking voice that I'm much more comfortable with and that I'm actually able to do better, in normal times without stuttering.
Well, like I told you during...
Sometimes failure is a good thing.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Like I told you during our conversation, I would not have known that you were as much of a stutterer
Right. People
as
don't.
you are, because you found your spot.
It's
you
so
found
managed,
who
right?
you are,
Yeah,
and that's so admirable.
I don't think people realize that for me, like every word that I say has some difficulty that other people don't have. I don't know what it's like to be able to just say stuff.
Yeah.
Like I can never say stuff. I also have to think, can I say these words, this order, the beginning sounds of the words, how they connect. It's like there's so many things that you have to think about that it makes it exhausting.
And nobody knows that until you talk about it.
Until you talk about that. Yeah. So who are some guests you're working on?
Well, as I said, Jack's coming up next,
coming up.
and then we'll have Denise. I have Pete Coulter, who has been a guest
great. Yes.
on your show.
A frequent guest here.
Yes, he's
Pete
great.
Is an amazing guy.
Oh,
yeah.
he's great. So
He's
I'm
got to
really...
put me in his show too.
I know,
Carrion
right?
Creek, a horror series. Oh
wow,
my gosh.
that is so cool.
I know.
I'm jealous.
I got to get a part.
Oh, jealous.
Pete's doing amazing stuff.
He's great,
it?
and I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to have that conversation in a couple weeks,
Nice.
and I've got a few other people lined up that we're still just kind of figuring out dates and times.
How do you feel when you do these podcasts? Whenever I do a great interview, I always feel so good. I feel like I really connected, and isn't it good? How do you feel?
I always feel great. I always feel great because I'm always remembering why I'm doing it.
Yes.
You know what I
right,
mean? You
right.
know, like when you sit here, you know why you're doing it. You're bringing information to your community.
Right,
and that's how I feel. And if one person hears somebody's story,
Yeah.
and that makes a difference in their life,
Right.
then I've done my job. And if it makes a difference in the life of the person telling me their story, because now they've said things that have been
too.
on their mind for a long time.
Media can do so much to heal, to unify. That's what I believed ever since I started back in the 90s at the OD as the gay rights columnist. It's like you can do so much with your voice, with your words, to like bring people together and to let people understand things and to really open people's minds to stuff,
Yeah, and what's more important than having our community? Our community is what's going to get us through anything that we're about to go through.
Absolutely.
Anything. So we need to have a strong community of people who value each other.
Yeah.
We really do.
Well, you picked some great guests, not just me, but
You were
Jack
great.
and Pete, my friends there. So tell us, where can you hear this podcast?
Well, I do have a Facebook page, Real People, Real Lives Podcast. You can follow that. And the podcast itself, I'll be uploading it to that page, but I also have it on all of the major platforms.
Oh, cool.
Now, I'm not going to concentrate on quantity. I'd rather concentrate on quality.
Well, that sounds good.
Yeah, they won't be out every week, and we're not talking weekly.
Right,
But
right.
if you like or follow them on the major platforms, your favorite, then you'll get a notification every time I upload a new one. So that's a really cool trick to have.
Yeah.
And again, I'm working on YouTube. That'll be up soon.
Yeah.
And but I would say just follow my page.
Yep.
And watch for updates.
Yep.
And also, if you'd like to be a guest and you'd like to tell your story, please feel free to message me on the page. A lot of
I recommend that.
our community are friends of mine already on my Facebook page, but just look for Sandy Jean and send me a request, and we can talk that way too.
That sounds great. We've been talking to Sandy Silverstein. She's the host and producer of Real People, Real Lives, the podcast. When we come back, we're going to head down to Westmoreland for a feature story in the Hometown Heroes banner project. Then I'll talk to Mike Aramo from the Art of Doing CS about his live online JavaScript game development camps for students. I'm Ron Klopfenstein, and you're on the hot seat on a Media Monday. I'll have more after the break. Welcome back to the hot seat on this Media Monday. I'm Ron Klopfenstein. Across the country, many communities have found a public way to honor their veterans. They hang Hometown Heroes banners that remind people that military service is not just history in a book. It's family history, it's local history, it is part of the story of a town. Westmoreland is now working on its own Hometown Heroes banner project. Photojournalist and AI content producer Jim Hale and I were there, and we have this report. I'm Ron Klofferson in Westmoreland, where banners were hung this weekend celebrating our hometown heroes. I'm with Michelle Batson. She was one of the organizers of this campaign. And Michelle, why do this?
I was raised in the Air Force, and my father brought me up on God and country, patriotism, and this seeing it in all the other towns and not in Westmoreland. Every time I'd come home, I'm like, why aren't there banners in our town? So that was why I reached out finally and asked.
So what did you do?
I just put on our Westmoreland Facebook page, why don't we have the banners up? And a couple people responded, and we got together.
Teresa McFadden is a longtime member of the Daughters of the American Revolution. After seeing the Hometown Heroes banners throughout her DAR work in Utica, she helped connect Westmoreland volunteers with the Mohawk Valley Hometown Heroes program.
Well, it makes you feel kind of proud to know that there's that many veterans from our town and how many different wars there are. I understand there's 2 actually World War I veterans that are going to have banners in our town, and that makes me even prouder. But that people are remembering that far back. And like I say, to know that our town is acknowledging something from the past and they're actually citizens from our town, it's just great feeling that one recognizes another one for the duty they've done for our country.
Lauren Kornemeyer's father, Louis, is one of the people featured on the banners. How does it feel to see him on the banner honored like this?
It's very heartwarming to see him on the canvas here. There's 7 of us, 7 siblings in my family, and we all collectively chose the picture and chipped in for this. He means a lot to us, and as of tomorrow, it'll be 22 years that we lost him.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you feel when you see it?
I got butterflies in my stomach right now, and
Yeah.
ready to cry. I'm very proud that this all came to fruition.
I caught up with Mike Flint and John Flint. They're a father and son team from Westmoreland who are out this weekend hanging up the Hometown Hero banners. So, Hometown Hero banners, why take the time on your Sunday afternoon to be out here doing this work, putting these up?
I'm just glad we got nice weather to do it, and it's nice to actually see pictures and stuff up to honor the people who have served from this community and not have to go into the cemetery to find their grave by random chance. It's nice to have their pictures up for whoever comes through our town to see, because 840 to 233 to the thruway, a lot of traffic on this road.
That's a good point. It's better than a grave because you see the face, you see the name.
Oh, absolutely.
You really feel like what they were like when they were alive, and kind of gives you a sense of the sacrifice that it was for some of them too. So, Mike, you've been a lifelong resident of Westmoreland. Does it give you pride to see these banners?
Oh, absolutely. Just honor the veterans and make the town, beautiful as a town. So I like it.
Why is it important to have some patriotic spirit, and to have stuff like this out here?
Well, the nice thing is it's our 250-year anniversary this year, too. So that's doing this now. Should have been done years ago, but
Yeah.
I'm glad we're doing it finally.
Victor Edict is another one of the Hometown Heroes banner project volunteers. I asked him what military service meant to him and his family.
In our family, there's no shame in serving the country, especially in his position. He was a medical.
You must be proud of it.
Very proud of it. Yeah, it's a great thing.
Yeah. So how are you going to feel when you're putting these up? What do you think they mean? What do they symbolize? What are you going to be thinking as you're up there, as you hang these, and actually as you drive by and see them too?
Well, very prideful that our town has this history and that we're celebrating it all, and that all these people in our town had a big push towards supporting it.
I asked Michelle Batson what she would want people to know about Westmoreland's Hometown Heroes.
I think mostly just that it's our history, and these are people that, some of them voluntarily signed up, some of them didn't, some of them came home, some of them didn't. It's just, I just think it's a wonderful program because I feel like our country's pretty divided right now, and there's a lot of people are pretty unsettled, and I think it's nice to remind everybody that we are a great nation, and this is why. These people are why.
Good answer.
Yeah. Thanks.
The banner behind me hanging in the village green celebrates our very first hometown hero. His name was James Dean. He founded Westmoreland, and he served all the way back in the Revolutionary War. The first round of banners will be up by Memorial Day, the second round by the 4th of July. and they'll be on display until Veterans Day. In the Village Green in Westmoreland, I'm Ron Klopfenstein for 95.5 FM The Heat. Be more Westmo. We'll have that story Tuesday at 9 p.m. on my YouTube channel, Facebook page, Instagram, and TikTok accounts. Joining me right now in the studio is Mike Arimo from the Art of Doing Computer Science. Mike is helping students learn real programming through live, online JavaScript game development camps. Mike, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Ron. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So tell us about these camps.
Well,
these classes.
This started years ago. Probably, I want to say it's coming up on about 10 years.
Oh, really?
So my oldest son is turning 9. So about 10 years ago, just found out I was going to become a father. And I think I had like an existential crisis that the person I was at that moment in time was potentially going to be the same person I was going to be for the foreseeable future, as my role shifted from investing in myself into investing into another, living creature. So I kind of took it on myself to get a new skill, and I wanted to learn programming. I've always enjoyed it. I've always had an interest in it, but I never had any real formal education in that area. I've got backgrounds in physics, backgrounds in math, but nothing, nothing computer programming related. Yeah, and so I just got a book, and I started reading, and I got an old laptop, and I started making projects and going through tutorials that I found. And what I found was there's this void of material for the middle. There's lots of really great introductory stuff, and there's lots of highly advanced stuff, but there's nothing that sort of targets that middle learner. Yeah. And so I thought, I think this is something that I could provide. And so I started making resources for online communities, videos that I could, publish, materials, programs,
like
tutorial videos. Yeah. And I posted them, shared them on platforms like Udemy and Pact Publishing. And the response was, it was well received. So I started pushing it further and further. And through learning all of that stuff, I then went to my local school district that I was working in at the time, and I said, I think I've got something here that would benefit our students.
Right.
And they were extremely supportive of the idea. And the next thing I know, I was teaching computer science at the high school level. Wow. I had an after-school computer science club. And it's just continued to sort of grow and expand. And
what is coding? Like, how would you describe it? So you're writing out the instructions for what the computer does.
Yeah, they're almost like that is well said. You clearly have some experience in computer science.
I didn't even do that with AI. It was all me.
Yeah, I think you said that perfectly. Coding is essentially writing out a set of instructions that the machine will follow, and machines do one thing exceptionally well.
What's that?
They do what you tell them to do. And so if you tell them, the idea is garbage in, garbage out. If you give them garbage instructions, they will produce garbage results. And so, the idea is that...
So coding has to be done well.
Coding 100% has to be done well. It's like anything. A car will drive if it's being held together with duct tape and, there's fluid leaking all over the place. The question is it sustainable? And I think a program is no different. A program can be written poorly, and it will work, but is it scalable? Can you build on it? Can you have others use it and have it grow? Can you implement new ideas into the program? The way you approach it from that first ground level is extremely important, and it's almost an art form. That you have to practice it.
How do you practice that art form? Like, do you write different codes and see how that works and modify the code, look for bugs?
Well, so you hit on a really great thing there. The debugging process and learning how to problem solve is a huge aspect of writing
editing,
code.
Right?
It's 100% editing. You start with an idea, something that just exists in your head, and then you have to get it out. You have to put it into a medium. It's no different than having a blank canvas and painting with paint, or sitting down with a guitar and having a song in your head and figuring out what the chord structure is. Coding, you start with an empty file with no lines, and you have to take your thoughts and write them up, and you have to translate it. You have to communicate what you're thinking to this machine.
How do you do that for a video game? There's so many variables. Like you shoot the laser gun this way, this happens. Shoot that way, that happens.
Well, I think it's it's funny because if you think about like these AAA games that are being produced by these large companies for Xbox or for PlayStation or for Nintendo, there's not one single person making these games. These games are being built by teams that are dedicating years and years of development to these. So what I'm trying to do here is scale that same idea down to a smaller level that can be digestible for young students.
Oh, I see. So they can work with a part of it.
They can work with a part of it. And so the structure of these online camps, I've written a variety of games, and what I've gone and done is I've taken different portions of that code and I've broken the game. So the game is not playable at all, which initially frustrates, students. But frustration is really good motivation. They say, hey, why is it that my laser is firing backwards when I got enemies in front of me? I got to figure out how this is supposed to happen. And so through breaking that game, I've broken the game in very specific spots where I call the missions. So I have mission-based coding where we will go through our code together and find where these missions are. And they're targeted one line or two lines of code where we talk about the coding principles that go into what needs to be done to fix that line. What do we have to do in order to get our spaceship to fire a laser?
So you narrow the focus down to like one or two lines of code.
Exactly. So I take that focus, which is a team of developers working years and years on a big AAA game, and I narrow it down into 2 lines.
Which is kind of probably like what one developer would do, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, one of the things that I struggle with a lot as a journalist, I want to say struggle with, but that I grapple with now, is how much of it is going to be, how am I going to stay in the field as a human in a field where AI is very effective, and I use AI a great deal. Almost like half of my work is AI now. How do you how does your field respond to AI?
I look at students that I teach and how they leverage AI, and I'm a little concerned that it's replacing the critical thinking, the thought process, the debugging. To sit down with a broken code and spend 20 minutes to try to work through the thought process that goes into what's not working, what is working, and making those changes versus offloading that thought process to an AI. You're losing that developmental rigor that's there. Like
for me as a journalist, the way that I try to compensate for that is to go out more and do more feature stories. Do these things where I'm talking to another person. Let AI maybe do someone chop up the content, produce the, do some of the polishing up. What do you do in coding to make it human, and make it like an individual?
Well, I think it goes back right to the infancy of the idea. So when you come up with the idea, you own that, and it's your responsibility to see that come to life. Now, I'm a big fan of AI too. I adore it. I think it's great. It can expedite a lot of that that work. But it's on you to really take the idea and bring it to a tangible product. I just recently ran a camp where I did some of these games. And students really enjoyed working through and fixing lines of code and then playing game and then coming up with their own idea. And then on the last day, I said, okay, you've seen about 3 of these games now. Let's transition, because a lot of the students had expressed interest in AI. So we went to ChatGPT and I said, let's learn how do we write prompts so that the AI can give us a base game that we can start with. And what was amazing, and build upon it. And what was amazing is that students sat down and their prompts were so vague. They were not able to get their idea into that AI model.
I totally believe that knowing how to write a prompt is going to be a really important skill. I've actually worked it into my college class at Utica
100%.
The people have to know how to do that. And I think for young students too, it's just going to be the thing that takes, it just is. The internet came and it changed everything.
This is their paradigm shift.
Now, is coding a different visual, or maybe when you visualize it, is it different than science or physics? For me, my example is, for most of my life, I was a writer. So I thought about things like top down, left to right paragraph form. in the past 2 years since I've had the show, I now do visual stuff with like videos. So now I think of things as a timeline, like left to right, but like not up and down. And actually, that's a big shift for my brain.
It's a huge shift. And I think that for beginners, when you're first starting out, at least the way that I teach it, I typically start by teaching top to bottom. This linear thought progression. What you write on line 1 will be followed by line 2, which will be followed by line 3, and so on and so on. But then we introduce some coding principles, such as like iterative loops. So iteration, this idea that I can have code repeat itself over and over again. And so maybe we create, in your example, right? Let's just say we have a spaceship that's firing laser beams, and there's aliens that are on the screen. Well, if we shoot and we kill one alien, we don't want the game to end. We want more aliens to spawn and more aliens to generate. So that enemy spawning or enemy generation might be happening inside of a loop. Sections of code, instead of running linearly, will run over and over repeatedly.
So that must be how you deal with the exponential possibilities of a video game.
Yeah, there's so many variables that you can take into account. And, the idea is that if you write the structure and you write your program well and clean, instead of duct taping it together and having the fluids leak out all over like our car analogy, if you start at the beginning and create a really good, bare model, building that functionality outward, you can have all of these enemies on the screen, and they're all doing different things, and you have a player that you can control, and you have different, you might have a laser beam or a bomb or, something else.
And it'll allow for the more possibilities.
It allows for more possibilities. A solid foundation allows for more possibilities.
Well, this course sounds really great. How can kids take this course? Like, where can they find information, or parents? Or?
Yeah, so I have on my website, theartofdoingcs.com.
Theartofdoingcs.com.
You can go and see any information that I have for our current camp offerings. You can also go and play any of the games that we offer. So, and these are all web-based games, so no need to download any software. We'll use a web-based IDE, or integrated development environment. It's essentially like the program where you're going to write your code. So instead of like a notepad, you write it in an IDE. And the games run directly in your browser. So on your computer, you can have in one tab your game and in another tab your code editor. And as soon as you write one line to change something, you see it in real time.
Wow, like,
and that immediate visual response, that is the reward that I think kids are looking for. They don't want to have to wait a half an hour to get the ship to fire a laser. They want that immediate reward, and that's what we're trying to give them here.
I gotta have you back to talk about some of these games at some point too. This has been a great conversation. One more time, what is that website?
Yeah, it's theartofdoingcs.com.
Theartofdoingcs.com. We've been talking to Mike Aramo from The Art of Doing CS. This entire episode online Wednesday at 9 on YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, Apple, and iHeart. Also, of course, at uticaphoenix.net/Medium Monday. Big thanks again to his other guests, Shaun Parese, Andy Silvers. Thanks to everyone who's part of our feature story for the Westmoreland Hometown Heroes project. Our audio engineer is Jonathan Brooks. He's DJ Jay Easy. He's up next with the Easy Ride Home. Jim Hale records the show for YouTube and podcasts, and he's our photojournalist and AI content producer. Willie Christopher is our associate producer, and I'm Ron Kloffenstein. I'll be back next week with another Hot Seat Medium Monday.